Hello. Okay, we're now recording the NFL Week 11 Saturday stream. So my name is James Cool. I'm the owner of Patriots DFS. Y'all know the spiel. Today we are going to be going through the NFL models for tomorrow for Week 11. We're going to be looking at the Vegas stuff first. We're going to be looking at over-unders to find which games have the most action, which games have the most potential. And then we're going to go through the models, and we're going to kind of go position by position. We're going to talk about stacks a little bit, not too much. But we're going to talk position by position. We're going to talk about, I think that this is a really good week to talk about ownership and leverage and how it applies to the slate overall. And then we're going to, we'll answer questions all the way through, but mostly we're just going to be hitting this. There are a lot of good spots to go after this week. There are currently 4 stacks that project for 60 plus fantasy points, which is quite a bit. I mean, usually we only have maybe 3, and usually one out projects all the other ones by a lot. So this week actually has quite a bit of options. And there's some really, really good leverage on Chicago. So let's go ahead and jump in. As soon as you guys have some questions, just go ahead and ask them, and I'll just answer them as we go. Let's do this deal. Okay, so as usual, I go to Fantasy Labs for their NFL Vegas tab. I just think that it's really good. Oh my god, that's wine. Yeah, that's right. I forgot that was wine. I was used to the whiskey. Whew. Okay. All right. So the top overall live over-under right now is Dallas and Kansas City, sitting at 56.5. Just a massive over-under. It's been bet up 1.5 points from 55 open. It is a public bet at 67% of the bets. The Cowboys went from 7.5 point underdogs to 2.5 point underdogs. Moved up quite a bit there on their implied total. Opened at 23.75 and jumped up to 27. So this game's only a 2.5 point spread, with the Chiefs being 2.5 point favorites on the road in Dallas. Or no, at home versus Dallas. So that makes sense. Dallas would be, I would think, probably about a 1 point favorite on a neutral field, which I would agree with at this point in the season. Split bets for those to happen, so there's some pretty good money coming in on the Cowboys. This is the game that everybody cares about this week. This is the game that's going to be the most popular for DFS. It also has the highest stack projection for me by a pretty large amount in terms of Kansas City. So Kansas City projects the highest overall at 65. Dallas comes in at about 56.8. The main reason why Dallas comes in at 53.75. The reason why Dallas comes in with a lower projection here is because Amari Cooper is going to miss this game. Amari Cooper being out means that Michael Gallup, who is only in his second game back from injury, is going to have a higher workload, and Dalton Schultz, I think, goes back to being a main top 3 target here. Cedric Wilson is going to be somebody who people are likely interested in as well as the wide receiver 3 for this team. But like I was talking about at the beginning of this show, I don't know how much Cedric Wilson is really going to impact the game. Like, I'd be surprised if a projection for him was over like 10 fantasy points. And sure, he's a good value, but I don't know how important he actually is. I think that I probably prefer focusing just on CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, and Dalton Schultz, and not really taking a shot on Cedric Wilson. But we'll see where pricing leads us. Pricing is kind of like the big thing here, especially with this game. It's really, really hard to stack the Kansas City side if you want to use Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Using Mecole Hardman and Travis Kelce, or Mecole Hardman and Tyreek Hill, makes a lot more sense logistically, so that you can actually fit in a comeback from Dallas. One question that I got earlier in the Discord was, can you use 2 bringbacks in this game? And I think you can. I think that you can do a full 5-person stack from this game with a quarterback, 2 of his wide receivers, and then 2 opposing receivers as well, whether you do it on the Dallas or the Kansas City side. This game has a massive over-under. And I mean, it's 2 very, very good teams going up against each other in a spot where both of them should just be able to tee off on each other. So can it be a trap? Sure, but any game can be a trap. And I think that when you have the potential like this, like, you just kind of like go after it. So I will certainly have probably a Dallas stack. If I can do a Kansas City stack, it's not going to be with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. I don't think there's enough value to do that. So probably a Dallas stack, but we'll see where it goes. And we'll see what ownership says too. I think if there's going to be lower ownership on somebody like Mecole Hardman compared to Tyreek Hill, I would prefer to go with Mecole Hardman. But this game, definitely, you need to care about. The second highest over-under, sitting at 50.5, is the Bengals at the Raiders. 61% of the bets on the over. It's only moved half a point, so that's really not significant. The Bengals did open as underdogs here, 4.5-point underdogs, and have rocketed up into favorites at 1.5-point favorites. 6-point swing, 6-7% of the bets on them to cover and then eventually move into that favorite position. So that's really, really notable. Their implied total jumped up from 22.75 to 26. And considering they're on the road, like, that's pretty crazy that they would move that far while on the road. People have a lot of confidence in this Bengals team. And I think probably lacking confidence in this Raiders team right now after the coaching switch and after all the things that happened. So Bengals project very, very well. They're the second highest projection on the slate for me. Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. The ownership does project to be high, but the price is pretty nice. For instance, Kansas City with a projection of 65.32 cost 22.9K for Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce. Cincinnati only costs 19.2K for a projection of 64 with Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase. So when you consider just the price there, like, Cincinnati already looks like a really, really good stack and really nice leverage off that situation. I also don't know how many people are going to be using both T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, but this stack just makes sense too, right? Like, the Bengals with those three of Burrow, Higgins, Jamar Chase, bringing it back with Darren Waller or Hunter Renfrow, one or the other, but Darren Waller taking up that tight end spot. That's really, really nice. So this game having a really high over-under. I have a lot of interest here as well. Very likely more interest in the Cincinnati side, although the Las Vegas side does project well, like relatively well also. It just doesn't inspire as much confidence, I don't think, with Waller and Renfrow against T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. And if you go with the Las Vegas side, you have to pick one of T. Higgins or Jamar Chase. And that, that's hard to do. I think more people probably on T. Higgins is the cheaper one, but that's going to be hard to do. And yeah, Zach, no Shelton co-stream. He's got some fun plans tonight, though, so I'm really excited for him. He's going to go knock some things off his bucket list. Third game that we have is the Indianapolis Colts at the Buffalo Bills. 49.5 over-under. Opened at 51.5, so it's down 2 points. That's not stuff that we love to see. Those 2 points coming directly from the Colts, going from 23.5 on their total down to 21.25. Drops them into that dreaded 7-point range. This line is not going to move past that. In fact, I would guess that it probably moves 6.5 by the time the lock happens. Since people don't want to sit on that 7. So this is pretty cut and dry, right? The Bills are a very good team. If we go over and we look at the pass efficiency metrics, Buffalo has the second highest. Like you can see right here, Buffalo, second highest difference on the slate, just behind Arizona and Seattle. This one obviously a little bit skewed because Geno Smith was QB. So this could arguably be the largest differential on the slate. They're only 7.5-point favorites. So pretty interesting there. I think Buffalo should just control this game, probably. Indianapolis is like they're a good team when they're ahead, but I think they're a bad team when they're behind. So there's going to be some very obvious ways to attack this. Josh Allen with Stephon Diggs and Emmanuel Sanders, bring it back to Michael Pittman, call it good. Or you can just use secondary stack of either Diggs or Emmanuel Sanders with Michael Pittman and also call that good. What are his plans? He is staying at the Stanley Hotel tonight, which is pretty cool. He's into like horror movies and stuff like that. So he's doing that, and that's going to be a fun time for him. I will not be at the Stanley Hotel. I will be here doing this. The next highest total is the New York Giants at Tampa Bay, but that game is not on this slate. Go Tampa, though, because, yeah. After that, we have a 47.5 over-under for the Packers at the Vikings. This game, surprisingly close spread. Only a 1-point spread in Green Bay's favor. I'm not sure why it's only 1 point. Even if like Aaron Jones being out, Green Bay on the road, I guess that would mean Green Bay at home would be a 5-point favorite probably, but I'm surprised they're only 1-point favorites here against the Vikings. Vikings are not a team that I think that I consider super duper good. Green Bay, of course, does not have large differential here. They are only a 250-yard differential here, so. But I mean, I would still probably think that that's something like 2 points. Seeing it as -1 is kind of weird. So. Oh, what are plans? Oh, whatever, man. I'm sorry. Yeah, I did miss that joke. My bad. It's the wine getting to me. So this game, Packers Vikings. I mean, the main thing here is that AJ Dillon is just major chalk and should be major chalk. I think he projects for like 20 plus fantasy points or something, and he's only 6K on DraftKings. So that's just a really really good spot overall for him. Dalvin Cook on the other side projects well. Justin Jefferson and Devontae Adams is a really valuable secondary correlation stack, along with Adam Thielen and Devontae Adams. Allen Lazard is going to miss this game, which could boost up Marquez Valdes-Scantling a little bit, but like, I don't know. I guess that what you would want from that then would you would do a Green Bay stack where you do Devontae Adams and Marquez Valdes-Scantling, bring it back to Justin Jefferson and call it good. But realistically, I just think that you're interested in Devontae Adams and Justin Jefferson as a secondary stack, or A.J. Dillon and Justin Jefferson as a secondary stack. You could do Adam Thielen as well, but I don't like betting on him to continue scoring touchdowns at just a ridiculous rate. So I don't really have a lot of interest in this game, I don't think. Next we have the Cardinals at the Falcons. This is a 47.5 over-under. It's down 3 points from open. It's a public bet down, though. 65% of the bet's on the under. The Cardinals went from 3.5-point underdogs to 1.5-point favorites on the road in Seattle. So Seattle has one of the best home field advantages in all of football. It's a really hard place to travel to and win. So they usually have like 4 points just given to them on the spread. So that means that the Cardinals here on a neutral field would be something like 5.5-point favorites. At home would be something like 7.5, 8-point favorites almost. So interesting line here. Again, it's been bet forward by a lot. 5 points from 3.5 to -1.5 is a lot, especially at split bets. Cardinals do get back Kyler Murray. They do not get back DeAndre Hopkins. So Hopkins is out of this game. Chase Edmonds is still out. Chris Carson is going in for surgery. And Russell Wilson is back. Russell Wilson should look better this week than he did last week. But who knows? I don't know. It looked pretty bad. Russell Wilson played pretty bad. But one thing that I was really interested to see was that Tyler Lockett actually has had a higher ADOT than DK Metcalf over the last 4 weeks, which is really, really interesting. I know that it was Geno Smith, so I'm trying not to focus on it too much. But that is worth noting. And last week, even, he had more unrealized air yards than DK Metcalf as well. So it's kind of interesting to think about. We usually think of DK Metcalf as like the long ADOT guy, and he hasn't been. So something to consider. This game, mostly secondary correlations for me. I think Cardinals have not been a team that have really been worth stacking. Without DeAndre Hopkins, it does make things a little bit more clear. It's pretty much just Christian Kirk, Zach Ertz, and AJ Green. Rondale Moore is fun, but he's not really somebody that you like for fantasy, so I can leave him off. And then for Seattle, it's very easy. It's just DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and if you want to get cute, you can go Freddie Swain. I don't hate stacking this game, I guess. Seattle does have a pretty high stack projection at 64.21, but it is Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Typically, you're not going to play those two guys together, so I don't know. I don't have a lot of interest in this game, I think, from a stacking perspective, but we'll see how it goes. I might stack Seattle and just bring it back to Christian Kirk, or bring it back with Zach Ertz and just call it good. I don't mind doing either one of those things. For some reason, you love a Miami stack? Bro, it's because, like, when Tua has been in over the last couple of weeks, he's been really, really good for fantasy. Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki just, like, being the main guys with Myles Gaskin, I don't hate that at all. It's really, really cheap. It's one of the highest upside stacks on the slate. But it is going to have some ownership. It does project for like the 5th highest ownership overall. And I mean, 5th highest ownership overall, that doesn't really matter all that much. So, like, you don't have to worry that much about that. But, it is worth saying that, like, it is not going to fly completely under the radar. It is going to be something that you're still going to have to, like, think about and worry about leverage a little bit. At least, like, one position. As we drop down, we have the Steelers at Chargers, 47.5 over/under. It's down half point, whatever. The Steelers opened as 2.5-point underdogs, and then Ben Roethlisberger got ruled in, and they dropped to 5.5-point underdogs. So that's just not a great sign for Ben Roethlisberger. But fuck that guy. He's a bad person, and his career should be over. But it's an okay spot for the Chargers, for sure. 5.5-point favorites. You gotta like Austin Eckler, for sure. You gotta like Mike Williams. Gotta like Keenan Allen. I don't mind stacking this and then bringing it back with either Najee Harris or Deontay Johnson, but I'm so low on this Steelers offense at this point, especially this late in the season. Ben Roethlisberger's been ailing. He's getting back from COVID. Like, this Steelers team, I'm just not on them. I prefer Austin Eckler in this game. I don't mind Najee Harris. I don't mind Deontay Johnson, but I'm not going to be stacking this game either. I don't think stacking the Chargers even is something I want to do. Next game, we have the Patriots and the Falcons, which was on Thursday. It did not hit 47 total points. It was a shutout, so that was bad. But Patriots covered. After that, we have a 45 over/under, so now we're really starting to fall down. Remember, the highest total on the slate is 56.5, so 11.5 points down. We have this San Francisco and Jaguars game. Opened at 45.5, has dropped half point, doesn't really matter. San Francisco is 6.5-point favorites on 80% of the bets to cover. They are traveling to the East Coast, so they will be playing earlier than they are used to. Or no, later than they are used to. So that's even nicer. The main thing with this game is that Eli Mitchell is out, so we have to question who is going to be the main guy for San Francisco. It looks like it's going to be Jeff Wilson. The rushing prop for Jeff Wilson is really, really high, and he's pretty cheap. So I don't mind using him. I think that he will not be as popular as he actually should be in DFS, just because people like Trey Sermon, and I just don't think that people are going to be gung-ho to go all in on Jeff Wilson, even at a good price. So I really do like Jeff Wilson in this spot, especially 6.5-point favorites. There's a lot of public backing. It's moved the totals. It's moved the spread. Jacksonville looks like a fucking train wreck. Like, it's a pretty good spot for Jeff Wilson. Outside of that, Mohamed Sanu is on IR. It just pushes up the main three of Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle. So that's pretty easy for San Francisco. For Jacksonville, Dan Arnold should continue to get pretty elite usage, but overall, stacking Jaguars is just not something I'm interested in doing. San Francisco will just choke teams out, run the ball 45 times, and not let them have any offense. So definitely like San Francisco running game there. And San Francisco defense, you have to be interested in as well. Let's see. Answer some questions. Allen with Beasley and Knox also has me interested for some reason. No, I mean, I don't hate that. I think that Cole Beasley is typically a low upside DFS play, but for a floor, I don't mind it. Ask Justin to make a whatever emote. Yeah, you need to, because I say whatever all the time. This week feels like last week. 3 cheap chalk running backs. I don't know what to do. Everyone and their mother's going to be on Dillon, Ingram, and Jeff Wilson. So I think everyone's going to be on A.J. Dillon and Ingram. I don't think that Jeff Wilson is going to be super duper highly owned. Like, even if I go and look at ownership on running backs, Jeff Wilson Jr. only looks at like 12% ownership, and I don't even have him projected all that well. Like, I need to project him better, for sure. So that's going to be an update that I need to make. Originally, I had him at, let's see, what did I have his baseline at? Going down to San Francisco. Okay, so I initially have him at a 55% of the rushing yards and 55% of the rushing touchdown split. But, like, I don't think that's high enough. Prop markets are really, really high on him. Maybe I need to move that up to 65, 65. Drop down Sermon a bit more. That looks better. I mean, I do think that I need to be higher on him, for sure. It's just a really nice spot. RG has Wilson at like 23%. Okay. Yeah, I mean, when I do final updates in the morning, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people really are on him, but it is a nice spot. He's 5,100. I think that if he comes in at like, I think if he comes in somewhere around like 30%, he's way overowned. I don't think that it's going to be possible for me to project him over 13 fantasy points unless I give him like all of the work, and I just don't think that's realistic. I do think Trey Sermon gets some work, and I do think that Kyle Juszczyk probably gets a little bit of work. So I don't know. We'll see where it goes. Next game. So I mean, we're really getting into the shitty games here. The Texans at the Titans, 45 over under. Open 50.5, which is crazy. It's down 5.5 points. Texans are 10-point underdogs. I don't think the Texans should be 10-point underdogs here. I think this version of the Titans is really, really bad. So I would be taking the Texans spread here. The Titans basically have lived on Derrick Henry's back, and they don't even have Jeremy McNichols for this game. So it's basically just like the corpse of Adrian Peterson along with, Donta Foreman. So I think that's hard to replicate a lot of the work that's being done by Derrick Henry. They don't have Julio Jones. They basically just have Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown. They don't even have Jeff Swaim. So, like, this is a depleted Titans team. I don't think they should be 10-point favorites. I think the Texans can either, like, cover this or win. But I think it's going to be a super, super sloppy game. I think it's just going to be shitty overall. Brandon Cooks, A.J. Brown is really the only secondary thing that I care about here. I don't really want anything else for that game, I don't think. We have the Miami Dolphins at the Jets, 45.5 over under. Dolphins are 3.5-point road favorites. Joe Flacco starting for the Jets. I think that Joe Flacco feeds Corey Davis here. Like feeds him. He profiles a lot as like Rashad Perriman, which is what Joe Flacco has liked throwing to in the past. So I do think Corey Davis is a really good play. I think Corey Davis, Jalen Waddle, and Mike Gesicki are all very playable in this spot. I also think Myles Gaskin is a really good play. I think that Michael Carter is going to lose a lot of his receiving upside, but still projects okay. Even without the receiving upside, he still projects okay, along with a lot of other running backs that project okay. But for the most part, like I really like Corey Davis in this spot. I think Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki are good, but I don't have any interest in actually stacking this spot. I guess you could do a Dolphin stack, go with Tua, Waddle, and Gesicki, and bring it back to Corey Davis. But like at a 45.5 over under, you're giving up so many points in expectation of an overall game that like I don't know that the price differential makes it worth it. It might, but I don't know if it does. If you do end up going that route, just surround it with Dallas and Chiefs chalk. And just hope that Tua can like keep up with Dak and Mahomes. Any love of Carter on Washington? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm projected okay. I know that I gave him pretty decent workload going into this next week because he did look good last week. And especially with no Ricky Seals-Jones, like they're really hurting for people to actually do things that matter on that team. I don't have him projected very well, I guess, but I do have some interest there for sure. I think you could do way worse in terms of plays. Let's see. We have the Ravens at the Bears. The Ravens are 5-point favorites. It's 44 over under. This game doesn't have a lot of love from Vegas. But with no Allen Robinson, there's a lot of leverage to be had on the Bears because they're not going to come in high enough owned. Like Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet have been legitimately good in terms of workload and have a lot of ceiling. And Justin Fields has looked pretty good in terms of his upside as well. And the Ravens, they're like awesome. They're just a good team, especially for DFS. Even with Marquise Brown out, like I think all it does is just make Mark Andrews better. I think it makes Sammy Watkins a really interesting GPP play. And I think it's just going to get people mostly off this game. So I'm not going to stack this. It's 44 over under, but I do really like some secondary stuff. I like Mark Andrews against Darnell Mooney. I like Cole Kmet against Sammy Watkins or Rashad Bateman. You could stack the Ravens here. You could just go Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews and then bring it back with Darnell Mooney. I don't even hate that. The Ravens have a pretty respectable total for their team. So there's some interesting things to do there. Models like the Bears for leverage, and I tend to agree with them. So next game is the Saints and the Eagles. Saints at the Eagles. 1 sec, let me get a drink. So the Saints, wow, Jesus Christ, 43 over under here. Really, really bad. I mean, 2 super rush heavy teams. That makes sense. The Saints are still missing Alvin Kamara, so it's going to be Mark Ingram. I was really surprised at the amount of targets Mark Ingram was getting last week, but it's because the receiving back actually got injured early in the game, so then Mark Ingram was able to get the vast majority of the receiving work. So keep an eye on that. I do think that Mark Ingram still projects well. Like they didn't move his price fucking at all. So I don't know what to do about that. He's like 5,400. He's basically in the same spot that he was last week, except a little bit better. And he projects slightly better because that receiving workload was really, really good. So people aren't really going to be on him, it looks like. Maybe they will. I'm not sure. But obviously a good spot. 5,400. He should be popular. But I mean, I will also say that he's not near as good of a play as A.J. Dillon at 6,200. So just keep that in mind. I don't have a lot of interest in this game at all. Miles Sanders will be back for the Eagles, in case you care about that. I don't really. It's an okay spot in terms of the running backs. Like Miles Sanders and Mark Ingram are okay, but I'm not stacking that game. I think that game mostly sucks. Thanks for the stream. Absolutely, dude. Has the Cooper injury affect the outlook of the Dallas pass catchers, and do I like Sammy over Bateman? Models like Sammy over Bateman. Models do like that. So Sammy Watkins actually projects pretty well tomorrow. Like I said, I think he more fills the Marquise Brown role than Rashad Bateman does. But I could be wrong on that. I like Sammy Watkins more than I like Rashad Bateman. Or the models do, at least. How does Cooper injury affect things? It mostly just pushes up Michael Gallup and Dalton Schultz. There's not really much more that you can give CeeDee Lamb. And Cedric Wilson is going to get some more snaps, but I think that it's mostly like Michael Gallup came back from injury and should step right into the Amari Cooper role. Dalton Schultz should pick up any targets that would have been left for Michael Gallup, and then Cedric Wilson just comes in and picks up the scraps. So I think CeeDee Lamb, mostly a wash. Good jump for Michael Gallup, who I think is actually the best wide receiver on their team. And then Dalton Schultz then becomes another premium tight end option. These last 2 games both suck. Washington at Panthers, 43 over under, and Lions at Browns, 42.5 over under. Main news here, like Cam Newton is going to start, but there's going to be some PJ Walker usage. Washington lost Ricky Seals-Jones. It's going to be John Bates now at tight end, so Terry McLaurin just alone on a fucking island on that team. Christian McCaffrey ran like God last week, but he didn't really get that much of a workload. Like, he only had 40-something% of the actual carries. He didn't have all the snaps. He had 20+% of the targets, so that's where he's going to continue to make his money, but with Cam Newton back and with them using Chuba Hubbard and like I don't know. Christian McCaffrey, what's his price this week? Because I'm kind of down on him. Like, models still love him. He's still got a median of 23, but he doesn't have a median of like 29 anymore. I don't know. That's a weird spot. I have to think more about the Christian McCaffrey situation. I don't think that I would be in a place where I'd be using him anyway, but like I'm not stoked on the usage that we saw from him. And then for the Lions, Jamal Williams should be back. Jared Goff is out. It's just Tim Boyle, who's I don't even know how he's still in the league, like at all. Brown should win this game easily. but like it's gonna be ugly. It's just gonna be Nick Chubb. So play Nick Chubb mostly. He's in a great spot. He's 7,800. I prefer Nick Chubb over Jonathan Taylor. I prefer Nick Chubb over Joe Mixon and Ezekiel Elliott in that same spot. Like Nick Chubb should just be able to do whatever he wants here. So Carolina was blowing Arizona out. Does that factor in that snap percentage? Yeah, probably a little bit. But I mean, even still, like Cam Newton was getting goal line carries. Chuba Hubbard took a goal line carry and got a touchdown. Like the usage wasn't great. Snap percentage was probably affected by Arizona getting blown out, but like overall the usage just was not very good. All right. Whew. We're through that. Wine is dry. So let's take a look, see how NBA is going. Mark Smart picking it up a little bit. Giannis only 18% owned. Franz Wagner is 40% owned. Good God. Josh Hart doing bad. Not doing great, Bob. Don't love to see that. Okay. Well, things look about right. So that's fine. So let's move on a little bit here and let's talk through the models. We'll go over some stack stuff. We'll go over some pass efficiency stuff, and then we'll just kind of go position by position and talk a little bit about things positionally. Wine is dry. I was wondering why like my voice was breaking, and it's because I'm drinking wine and it's super dry. It's drying out my throat. All right, so hold on, that's right. I need to jump these up a bit. We're gonna look at this stuff, which you can already see. This stuff. All right, so talk about stacks. Kansas City is the top overall stack. Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce is the algorithmic stack. It's just expensive. It's 22.9. It's going to be really, really popular. Projection is 65, which is nice. But Cincinnati, you know, for $3,700 cheaper, projects basically the same. Seattle, like I said, you probably are not going Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett, and DK Metcalf. It's really, really expensive, and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett hardly ever have good games together. So even though it projects well, you're mostly going Russell Wilson with DK Metcalf and Freddie Swain or Gerald Everett or something like that. You're not combining Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. After that, we have Buffalo stacks with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and Emmanuel Sanders. So, I mean, that projects fine as well. But that's the last one at 60. After that, you break into these ones that are projected into the 50s, which is Baltimore, Dallas, Las Vegas, Green Bay, Arizona, and then Chicago. So those are the teams that project into 50. And I would consider these fringe ones, like you can still use these teams. I don't mind them. I talked about the Baltimore stack. I think Lamar Jackson with Sammy Watkins and Mark Andrews works really, really well. You can bring it back with Darnell Mooney really, really easily, and that makes for a really, really nice stack. Dallas, obviously up against Kansas City with CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup. That one projects for 53. Bringing it back with Travis Kelce probably makes the most sense, or with Mecole Hardman. I just don't think that you can afford to do Tyreek Hill. Maybe you can. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I guess I haven't tried. Like, how much does that cost? Let's see how much that costs. Let's go over the rush construction tool. Dak Prescott, Tyreek Hill with CeeDee Lamb. Oops. And Michael Gallup. Yeah, I mean, $4,500 remaining per player. It costs $27.2K to stack that up. It's just so hard to stack it like that. You do Dalton Schultz, maybe? I don't know. That's not that much better. Like, he still costs the same as Michael Gallup, so. He costs more than Michael Gallup. Just hard to do. Don't love it. It's pretty expensive. Like, you can do it I guess you probably do that with Jeff Wilson and Mark Ingram at running back, and then trying to think where the value is. I mean, I guess you do Sammy Watkins and Darnell Mooney. Let me build that out really quick. That's what I think you probably do. Yeah, so you do Michael Gallup here. And then you're going to go Sammy Watkins. Oh, no, you don't do that. You Dalton Schultz. And then Darnell Mooney with Jeff Wilson Jr. and Mark Ingram. Yeah, okay, so you have 2,700 left. I mean, that's a lineup you can make. This isn't bad. This is something that I could probably play tomorrow. But we'll see. I'm not sure. I think it works. After that, I mean, we have Green Bay, which I don't love, but you can use Devontae Adams, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. MVS is plenty cheap enough. Derek Carr, Darren Waller, and Hunter Renfrow bring it back with either T. Higgins or Jamar Chase. I really, really like. It's nice and cheap, 17.8K. Bringing it back with T. Higgins, I think works really, really well. The only way that Cincinnati actually wants to pass the ball is if their opponent gets out to a lead. The problem is that Las Vegas, if they get out to a lead, they're just going to run the ball with fucking Josh Jacobs. So, I don't know. That's a weird spot. They would have to push each other. Like, one team would have to get up on top of the other one, and then they just have to keep fighting back and forth. And then the final one we'll talk about kind of is Chicago, right? So Justin Fields, Darnell Mooney, and Cole Kmet. It's super cheap. There's a lot of leverage. 12.46% leverage is really, really high. It only costs 14.3K. And you can bring it back with Mark Andrews or with Sammy Watkins. You could even probably do Lamar Jackson with... Okay, here's a weird one. Lamar Jackson, Sammy Watkins, Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet. Because if Chicago can get out to a lead, Lamar Jackson likely outscores Justin Fields and uses Sammy Watkins to get him there, it works. It's a weird one, but it works. Overall, I think these are kind of the stacks that you care about. I mean, you can jump down into this range, but this is kind of like the last range you want to get to. After that, like, you're not touching any of these. Like, all of these stacks suck. So you really only have, like, I personally prefer to try to stick to these. You can go to these if you're a little bit desperate. These are like last resort if you're getting really weird. But overall, trying to stick to just these overall. Looking at a couple other things here. So, running backs, Wilson, Ingram. Yep, secondary stack. Yep. Exactly. That's exactly the lineup. Don't mind it at all. Might play it in Power Suite. Okay, so let's look overall at the ranges. So right now I have things sorted by ownership. One sec. All right. So A.J. Dillon projects as the highest owned. I'm going to guess he's like 40% owned or something like that. I think that the models are under on him right now. James Conner, second highest. I'm actually surprised by that. I don't think that James Conner should be that highly owned, projecting at 21% owned. T. Higgins, Michael Gallup, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill. David Montgomery projecting as kind of chalk is really interesting, especially against Baltimore. I don't think that he should be chalk. Nick Chubb looks like he's coming in too low owned. Darrell Williams is now... I mean, he's not going to project like that anymore because Clyde Edwards-Helaire got projected in. So if Jeff Wilson was projecting for 23% on RotoGrinders, like, I think that that's obviously going to jump up quite a bit. Outside of that, you drop down farther down. I'm surprised to see that Michael Gallup is the only Cowboys wide receiver that's projecting for high ownership. CeeDee Lamb should be higher than that. Dalton Schultz should be higher than that. I'm surprised to see both of them lower. So if people really aren't going to be that high on Dallas, like, I think you really, really need to just lean into it and just go really, really heavy into it, because that is just a fantastic spot. Are my ownership projections all automated? For you guys, yes. I aggregate a whole bunch of ownership projections together and then use a little bit of extra global variables to kind of like glue them all together. But yeah, they're mostly automated. Like I have to manually go pull things, but like then the actual process and the algorithm is automated. As we look at QBs, top overall projection for QB is Lamar Jackson and then Josh Allen. Those guys project just far above the rest. Justin Fields is kind of like the guy that projects as the best value, 5,700. So he's probably a good cash game option. Derek Carr at 5,900 looks pretty good as well. Tua at 5,500. The guy that sticks out here as bad is just Ryan Tannehill. But ownership overall looks like Patrick Mahomes and then probably Dak Prescott, right? Pretty high there. It's like high-ish ownership on Derek Carr. I guess that makes sense. But mostly I just think it's going to go to Patrick Mahomes and Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, I would be surprised at 7,200 if he is not like really, really highly owned. At running backs, the best leverage that we have is on Christian McCaffrey, mostly because he's just not going to be highly owned, and I have him as the highest overall projection. And then Jonathan Taylor. People just continue to not play Jonathan Taylor just because his workload is not all that great, which makes a lot of sense. Like, I don't think that's crazy. And then A.J. Dillon. Like, A.J. Dillon is technically negative leverage, but you're still going to play him because you can pick up the leverage elsewhere. Let's see. Mark Ingram projects okay, 5,400. Miles Sanders projects okay, 13. Dave Montgomery projects meh. And then I do want to go back in and touch up a couple things here, but for the most part, like, Nick Chubb, I think, is an obvious play. A.J. Dillon, I think, is an obvious play. Mark Ingram. And then, like I said, like I want to jump up Jeff Wilson quite a bit because he's only projecting for, like, 10 right now, and I want to project that up. But I think, again, you're going to be paying into the mid-range. Like, you're going to be playing Josh Jacobs. You're going to be playing A.J. Dillon. You're going to be playing Mark Ingram. There's no reason to jump up into this range. There's no reason to jump up past 8K. Like, the highest that I would pay is Nick Chubb at 7,800 for sure. Wide receiver, just go with your stacks. Not really much that I need to talk about there. If you guys want to see those things, and you can jump in and get a subscription over at the site. I will note that Sammy Watkins projects very, very well at 4K. Tight end, basically the same thing. Darren Waller projects the best, followed by Travis Kelce, and then Mark Andrews. It's basically just pay up for tight end week, except for Cole Kmet, who's only 3,400 and projects for basically 11 fantasy points. So, yeah, that's pretty much going to do it. Coming up on 45 minutes. In a Cincinnati stack, who are you bringing back on the Raiders? Probably Darren Waller, but it could be Hunter Renfrow or Bryan Edwards. It just kind of depends on what I am doing with my secondary correlations, but preferably Darren Waller. I'm going to cut it because I have to meet up tomorrow and we need to have dinner and get to bed early so that I can survive. But thank you guys so much for tuning into the stream. Again, my name is James McCool. I'm the owner of Patriot DFS. If you guys have any questions, reach out to me on Twitter. And if you don't, then just enjoy your weekend. Have a good week. And I will talk to everybody later. See ya.